It's a Super Bowl matchup in the making, going back to the last time these two teams met. How does Chiefs-Niners fall out? Coming up next, I'm Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. We're brought to you by FanDuel. Today, make sure that you can go place a $5 bet and you can get all those $200 in bonus bets back guaranteed right now at FanDuel.com to get started. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Check out another show like the Niners show that you saw a bit of yesterday. Your next listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, because we do the same thing every day for free everywhere. Like, sub, hit the bell here on YouTube. Get on Spotify, get on Apple Music to get it all. You can find even more at 816-357-8782, 81. This is Chris Clark over here. Now I'm doing it again. I'm Ryan Tracy. You can find Chris at KC Chiefs Corner. I'm over at NFL33.com as well as RGR Football. Make sure you check those out as well for even more detail. Thanks for joining us. We are going to get down to the nitty-gritty today of this matchup. What are the X factors? Who can stand out and change this game? What are our predictions? That's coming up later in the show. We will also get to the must-win matchups. Who has the advantage in which situation, player by player, coming up next. But we start where it usually all starts, attacking the quarterbacks. These are two quarterbacks that do things a little bit differently. Obviously, very different systems, but you can attack them the same way. It's about getting pressure. Mahomes has a streak. I don't really want to talk about it, but I'm sure we will. Brock Purdy has a streak. It comes down to this. The guy that you pressure the most into mistakes is likely to win this ball game. Chiefs need to win the turnover situation, and you got to pressure Brock Purdy. For me, that's the biggest thing that stands out. He has a significant drop from 9.5 yards per attempt to 7.5 yards per attempt when you get pressure on him. That's the name of the game. I think Chris Jones and Steve Spagnuolo are going to have it rolling for him.
Gonna absolutely have to. Chris Jones, Treshawn Wharton, George Karlaftis, they're all gonna have to get after Purdy this week. FAU as well, because it sounds like he's going to be in there. Mike Dana mispracticed again. So, when you start looking at pressure, that's where you're going to have to get your pressure from. And unfortunately, Kansas City has struggled at times with that, but they're going to have to figure it out this week because they have to get pressure on Purdy. I will tell you, Ryan, that Brian yesterday gave a compliment to Pooney, Mr. Pooney, saying he's been playing fantastic. So, but he's got a huge matchup with Chris Jones this week. So we'll see how well that goes.
Yeah,
I need to appreciate that.
But that's a tall order. Yeah, I do. And shout out to Brian for mentioning it, because, yeah, that's it's nice to play well. It's tough to keep that rolling when you got Chris Jones across your face from it. But that's really where it begins and starts. How much are they going to help Pooney, right? To give him a chip, to give him doubles. Chris has to do enough to jump into gaps, to draw those doubles in order to help everybody else win. And normally I would say that doesn't really include George Karlaftis, but this season so far, George on his own has not been generating as much pressure as he usually does. So it's that much more important, not just for George, but for FAU and everybody else. Luckily, I think Turk's been coming out. And I think the pair of them inside can then help the guys outside. And that way it leaves Spags some ceiling to go to when he wants to go send blitzes, which I'm sure he will do. But I think it starts there, that just those front four. And again, it doesn't matter for Purdy, whether it's four getting pressure or you're sending blitzes. It's just getting the pressure on him, moving him off of his spot.
Yeah, and that's a huge deal in this game, but it's also a huge deal on the other side of the ball. And when you start looking at matchups, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, but the other side of it is the Chiefs having pressure on Patrick Mahomes and the matchups that they're going to be facing in this game. Leonard Floyd, from what I was told yesterday, and this is a little bit of a surprise to me, Bosa is playing mostly on the left side of the defense this year, which means he will be going up against Jawan Taylor if they keep him there. And you'll have Leonard Floyd going against Wanya Morris. Yeah, I have a feeling that they'll see a lot of Nick Bosa against Wanya Morris.
I can only hope, for the love of all things holy, leave Nick Bosa against Jawan Taylor. Thank you, 49ers. You've made my day much better. Because as much as I like Leonard Floyd, and he's been a guy that's been persistent and been able to get some plays in this league, he does not scare me near as much as Mr. Bosa does, especially against Wanya Morris. Unless something goes crazy, if we see Kingsley in there for some stretch or something, again, you never know. But against either of them, it really doesn't matter. Nick's got such an advantage. I would much rather just see them stay in his spot on the left-hand side of their defense. Makes me happy.
That would make me very happy as well. I think that Juwan would match up better. He's still probably going to get beat a time or two by Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa, I think, is probably one of the top 3 DNs in the NFL. And to me, if you have that going against Juwan Taylor versus Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamati, I mean, obviously I'd rather him stay on the left side, just like you. And I'm curious to see what the Chiefs do, because when you start looking at the premium pass rushers, they haven't really faced a premium pass rusher. Hendrickson is good. I don't know that I'd put him on the same level as Bosa. And in that sense, you have to look at it from the aspect of how are they going to deal with that? Because generally speaking, they've been leaving their tackles on islands for the most part. They've given Wanya a little bit of help this year, but is that going to continue? Or are they going to give Juwan help if he has Bosa on a down-by-down basis? The other thing that I would really like about Bosa being on the left-hand side is Mahomes would generally see him coming when he's dropping back. You're going to see that coming from that side of the ball. You're not going to see it coming from the other side of the ball.
I agree, and it does give you some tendency busters there. I do not expect that. I expect Bosa to be on the right-hand side of his defense coming against one of the young left tackles, and I do expect that the right shoulder of Kareem Hunt is going to play a factor in here, because Kareem's going to have to hit him a number of times on the way out of the backfield in order to just chip him back into the tackle's lap, get him back in front of him. It doesn't have to be a decleater or anything. You just got to keep him in line. And I do think they're going to have to use the backs in particular. I don't think they're going to take chances. I hope they don't take chances with trying to use tight ends to block or chip, because I think that takes away more than it does using particularly Kareem Hunt. Samaje Perine is a pretty good chipper as well, so I'm comfortable with either of those guys. But that's just one thing to do. There's a ton of matchups up and down this roster. We're going to have to get to them all, and the ones that stand out the most coming up next.
For most of us that like collecting trading cards, the idea of spending $1,000 to $2,000 on a rookie card, like a Mahomes rookie card, just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that is some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of the retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale provided and an explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl and use code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for 10% off.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has daily fantasy sports and makes it accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. Run your game all season long at Prize Picks. They make it simple, and they even invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So sign up today and you can get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. You don't even have to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the Game Time app and use our code LockedOnNFL, and you're going to get $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. Super simple. Download that app, use our code LockedOnNFL, and get that $50 bonus for playing a $5 lineup. Super easy over at Prize Picks. Matchups are always the thing that ball games come down to, because it's about the guys on the field and how they attack it. This matchup is in particular really, really, I think, tight, because when you look at power rankings across some of the sites that break those down statistically, the Chiefs and Niners are generally 1 and 2 in the offensive power rankings. They're somewhere in the top 5, each of them, in the defensive rankings. I think that's where it really comes, the specific matchups that really make the difference. There's a lot that stand out. What's the biggest one to you?
Kind of talked about it this last segment. Nick Bosa versus whoever he's going up against. That's the biggest matchup to me. You look at this Chiefs offense, and one of the things that has slowed Mahomes down time in and time out, and the streak that you talked about is him having it pick in every single game so far this season. And one of the reasons is he is not trusting his protection, and Nick Bosa is going to be a big reason why he may not trust his protection on Sunday afternoon. That, to me, is a huge matchup, whether it's Jawan Taylor or it's Wanya Morris. And I will say this, I kind of disagree with you. I would not be surprised. I don't know that I would like it, but I would not be surprised if they use tight ends on a regular basis to help with Nick Bosa, just at least to get a hit on him here and there, every couple of downs.
Okay. If they choose to do that, I think that alleviates something, because one of the prime matchups for me is going to be Fred Warner versus Travis Kelce. Now, I don't know if they're going to leave Fred on him the whole time, but with his lack of production or lower production for Travis Kelce this season, I think the Niners are going to be tempted to do that. And if they do, it opens up a ton of options for the Chiefs. Yes, you're still going to want to get the ball to Travis Kelce. But depending on if they're just playing simple drop zones, if they choose to man up, what does that give you? Because it's going to be glancing blows that I think is going to be a lot of counter flow. Pull Fred in one direction if he's going to take Kelce after you get the field for that first drive or so, and run everybody else the other way, because it leaves a gaping hole over the middle that I think the Chiefs can take advantage of with anybody out there. Obviously with Xavier. You can run X's plays right down the middle, attack the seams with him. I would do that. You can do that with Noah Gray. You can do it, honestly, with Jody Fortson from wherever you choose to align him. He hasn't gotten a ton of snaps yet, but you may absolutely be right, and I'd like to see him get in there. But I do think somebody else is going to have to step up. We'll talk about who that might be here coming up a little bit later. What's another matchup that stands out for you that they have to win?
I think it has to be Worthy against the safeties, and it's going to be a big matchup, I think, in this game, because the Niners just lost one of their starting safeties last week. Mustafa is another one that is on the injury report right now. He's limited. I would guess he's probably going to play, but when you start looking at Xavier Worthy against this 49ers defense, it's a question of, can you keep him from beating you deep? It doesn't take that many plays to make a huge difference if you can get him going in the deep game. And that is something that I think is really going to be a huge deal in this game, is can they use him and make 2 or 3 throws and at least get them to back off a little bit, which is going to open up the running game. But if they hit on 1 or 2 of those long throws, that changes the entire dynamic of the game and how you're going to be able to play defense against this Chiefs offense, which becomes an even bigger deal because there is another injury that we didn't talk about yet in Juju Smith-Schuster, who is limited with a hamstring injury. And that is a injury I don't know how they're going to get past, if I'm being quite honest, if he's not able to go.
It's a tough one. Depending the way they choose to play it. And I think the Niners are going to try to mix it up a little bit. This is a team that's coming off of back-to-back games against their division rivals. So I think they want to play it maybe a little bit more zone. And I do think that there's some speed that you can use. I would like to see Justin Watson get back in the mix. If Juju is not 100%, which he clearly doesn't seem to be, although we don't know the severity of the issue now. Limiting him may be more precaution than it is clinical. We'll find out.
Let's hope.
And I actually think that a guy that I want to be in the mix is going to come up later in the next segment in my X factors. But you're right. Not having Juju, at least not having Juju where he can pick up where he left off after what was a big game pre-bye, I think that's going to be important. For me, the last matchup they have to win is in the trenches. Yes, in the pass game, but they have to enforce their will. They have to be better in the red zone and in short yardage. They have to run the ball well. Per PFF, Chiefs are running about number 5 in the league in terms of offensive line collective play, well ahead of the Niners. Obviously, you have the pass rush threat, but I think the run game is a way to help that, to feed it and let it grow in terms of the game plan across, especially the second and third quarters. And then I think it'll just be rip roaring there at the end. But I think it's up to the offensive line as a whole. A, to protect their left tackle, but B, the other 4 of them to come together and really man up so that they can move the ball on the ground.
Well, and the big thing about that is one of the stats that I saw yesterday is the Chiefs are 32nd in the NFL in explosive plays. 32nd. This offense is not built to be 32nd in the NFL. They are 5-0 and have one of the worst offenses when it comes to explosive plays. That has to change, and it starts with those guys up front. They have to get to a point where they can be they're still extremely efficient. I think they're over 50% in run rate efficiency and winning in that regard. But the problem is they're not getting those explosive plays. They're getting 5 to 6 to 7 yard gains, which is great, but the 10 to 15 yard gains are the ones that really are going to, matter when it comes down to it later in the game, because if you keep gashing them with 10-yard runs, even if it's every, 4 or 5 runs, you get a 10-yard run, that makes a big difference in how the game is going to be played. And it's going to wear out the defense. So I completely agree with you. I think that the offensive line has a huge job this week. They have to win that battle up front, and they have to take it to the 49ers, because the running game has to be something that they're going to have to focus on this week.
I agree. And it plays directly into the quarterback play. If you compare the 2 quarterbacks right now, it's a full half a second more for Brock Purdy on average in time to throw versus Patrick Mahomes right now. They have got to get this sorted out up front. I think that they will, and that will lead to hopefully some more explosive plays. Who are those X factors that will be bringing it coming up next? Hey there, NFL fans. You can get started right now with a big return with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Takes the life out of your middle there. And so when you have that hunch in the middle of a ball game or in the middle of the day on a packed Sunday with a full slate, you can check the latest stats, check out the live play-by-play, and get that so deep into the game that you can make your decisions and go on the same page to place your bets. Makes life super simple. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It's over at FanDuel. There's a lot of options there, especially when Patrick's throwing interceptions early or we're running the ball really good. You never know what's going to happen, but if you have a gut feeling, check it out at FanDuel.com. This is always the fun part, because especially on a team like Kansas City and a team like San Francisco, there's plenty of guys who can be an X factor week to week to week. The person that I was talking about earlier is someone that I think can step up, has played a few games against this team and has done fairly well. I think especially if Juju is not ready to perform a significant role in this ball game, I think it's Mecole Hardman that I want to see do the deed, because you've seen him run some jet. You've seen him be a little bit more active against the Niners than some other teams in the past. And I think giving especially misdirection and change in terms of the front, the motions, everything that you throw at the eye candy aspect, and throwing that at Nick Bosa, I think helps slow him down so that there's a little bit more thinking going on. So it gives Patrick an extra half a step. I think Mecole Hardman could be pivotal in this game.
I'm going to go a little bit more homerish, I guess. I hate putting it that way, but it feels like it. I'm going to say Jody Fortson. You look at this matchup, you look at this team, and it's a matter of Kansas City has to find a different way to win than they've been using. And Jody Fortson is a guy that they haven't had on the roster. They had him, right before the bye. He got out there for a couple plays. He got a catch. They did a little bit of 14 personnel. They did a lot more 13 personnel than we've seen. I think that's something that they're going to have to pivot and go to, especially with an injury to Juju. If Juju isn't able to go, even if you bring up a guy from the practice squad, he's not going to be able to step in and do what Juju has done on this offense. So you have to be able to use the weapons that you have, and one of those guys right now is going to be Jody Fortson. Yeah, you can use Noah Gray and do what he's been doing with the football, but Jody Fortson runs well enough to run some of the types of wide receiver routes in the intermediate areas that I think could really help this offense. And he is going to be a matchup nightmare in some ways, because he is such a big target in the way he can run.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I would love to see that, because I think, again, like a lot of guys returning, just walking back into this offense gives a guy like Jody a lift, just because it's comfortable, because he knows it, and because he can then be allowed to be himself and really step outside and perform.
And we know
For
Patrick
me,
Justin.
the X player on defense. Yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely. And that chemistry is there. For me, the guy on defense that stands out as an X factor has made some big plays this season. Has been, I think, attacked a little bit and maybe shown some chinks in his armor, but that's okay. It's been an up and down season. But I think when you look at how the Niners are successful right now, the matchup outside with Ayuk and Jalen Watson, I'm pretty comfortable with. I think the Trent McDuffie is going to draw at least some attention on Deebo Samuel, but there's going to be ways whether they line him up in the backfield or they do something to get him loose. I think Jamari Connor's got to play a role here that is significant against Deebo coming out of the backfield, lining up in the slot, but also against Kittle, who had a nice game last week again. Has been up and down with injury and maybe not fully 100%, but if they choose to run Connor to try to combat him, I think he can move with him, and he does have an eye for the ball. I just hope that they don't get too much in trying to bring down the safety to take on Kittle in the run game. They got to be able to change it up. I'd love to see Hicks, but I think it's Connor that's going to be the pivoter here.
I could see that, and I do think Connor's going to have a big play in this game when you look at the matchup pieces that they're going to have between Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and even some of the running backs coming out of the backfield, which leads me to my next X factor in this game, and it's Nick Bolton. I do think, based on talking to Brian yesterday and kind of what I'm seeing on the injury report, I think Mason goes. And Mason is the number 2 runner in the NFL right now. Even after missing a game, he has had some huge games so far this season for the 49ers. And the Chiefs have been very good against the run. It has to continue because one of the ways that you can stop this 49ers offense is make them one-dimensional. Yes, Purdy has played well, but he needs a running game to be effective, to be as effective as he can be. And so to me, it's Nick Bolton. He's got to be on his game. He's got to be, plugging the holes and attacking like he was against against Alvin Kamara, who is a fantastic running back. Kamara, in my mind, is way better than Mason, but the blocking is probably a little bit better for the 49ers. So that kind of is going to play into how this goes. But to me, Nick Bolton has a huge, huge job on Sunday afternoon because he absolutely needs to have a big game. And if they can get it to where, even if you let Mason get 50 to 75 yards, I'm comfortable with that. It's that he doesn't get going for 100 plus and he doesn't run the ball 20 times because he's getting 5 to 6 yards a carry. That's when you start having problems. If he gets to 15 carries but he's only got 50 to 75 yards, you've done your job.
Yeah, I think that the strength that the Chiefs have is being physical on defense right now. As I mentioned, Juwan Jennings is, if he missed practice, didn't participate today, he's got a hip going on. But if he's out there, unless they do some super trick play like they did in the Super Bowl, I feel comfortable with the way Jalen Watson's playing. Obviously, with Trent McDuffie on him, I'm comfortable there as well. It's the different style of guy. And if he's not going to go, the Niners offense shifts with Ricky Pearsall returning because he is a much quicker, a much underneath guy, not the X type receiver. And I don't think the Chiefs are quite as prepared this season for bolstering the nickel as they are outside. So if that is the way that it goes, look for whatever happens with Drew Tranquil to be kind of key. I think they will try to attack him in the pass game and see what they can get that way.
Yeah, they have to be efficient on defense and they have to keep them in third and long. Any way they can do that. And generally speaking, that's going to be loading up the box and stopping the run on first and second down and getting them to third and long where Chris Jones can get after the passer. If they can do that, I think that this defense is going to be very good. The question is, are they going to be good enough to slow down San Francisco if Purdy is able to get going? The one thing I will say, if you go back and watch San Francisco's games so far this season, Ayuk has not really gotten going yet. And that's a little surprising to me. But at the same time, it's one of those things where they've still been good enough on offense, even without him. It's a little concerning. Obviously, this Chiefs defense is going to be a great test for them. And I think that they're going to be up to the challenge. But this is going to be a heck of a game on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. How do you see this playing out? What is your prediction?
Oh man, I've been going back and forth on this one. Honestly, it's tough because I think San Francisco is obviously better than the 3-3 record that they have right now, and I think Kansas City has played probably not as good as their 5-0 record. But it's Andy Reid coming off a bye, And that is so key. And I think that plays a huge deal in this game. I think he's 24-3 after the bye. I think that's a huge advantage for them. And he has a really good feel for being able to plan out how to get around different teams. And they've beat the 49ers. So I also think that plays into it. I think that the 49ers should look in this game and saying, we haven't beat the Chiefs in the last 3 times we've played them, which is the entire time Kyle Shanahan's been there. I think that's something that's going to make them press a little bit more, and they're going to feel a little bit more pressure to try to win this one to show that they can beat Kansas City. So to me, I think that Kansas City is going to find a way to win. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a nail biter. I'm going to go 20, probably 24-20.
Yeah, okay. A little bit higher than me. I think the line that I saw today was a 47.5, and I'm right up against it. I think in the end, I agree with you. It's going to have to be a back and forth push. I do think I will take the Chiefs for certain, to tell you the truth, because I do think in playing closer games, I think they've prepared themselves for a contest like this one. I think they have the opportunity to be more physical. And this is the perfect time to play this team coming off the bye. So I think they'll use it to their advantage. I have them winning 27-24, but 2 votes for your Chiefs. Let us know what you think. Put your predictions down in the comments here on YouTube. Make sure you hit us on social at Locked On Chiefs on X as well. Thank you for spending your week with us. We appreciate it. We will be live post-game, as we always are. So don't miss out on that. We'll have Matt Derrick with us. A lot to cover. You can find it all over at KC Chiefs Corner for Chris, the NFL 33 for me, and RGR Football for me. We appreciate you spending your time with us. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you post-game.